Well, good morning and welcome to another week on my allotment. It's 2 weeks since I posted a video, and there's a story behind that. Not a very interesting one, but I made a video last weekend and I went to post it Sunday night or Monday night. I think it was Monday night because it was a bank holiday, and the computer just wouldn't play. It wouldn't. I created the video. I went to save it and the computer wouldn't save it, and I messed about and no, it wouldn't do it. I have very limited computer skills. You can tell by the very simple videos I make, but I was just simply unable to save the video to upload it to YouTube. So in the end, rather than get angry and frustrated, I just deleted the lot and thought, right, I'll try again this weekend. And if it doesn't work this weekend, I know I've got a problem. So if you're watching this, somehow it's solved itself, because I haven't solved it. And let's hope that's the case. So what did I do last week? Well, last week really, the main job over the day, I was here for a whole day over the weekend. It was Saturday rather than Sunday. And the main job of note really was the tomatoes. The tomatoes got really bad blight. So I saved a beautiful sky. I saved the tomatoes I could, and then I dug up all the plants and I've put them in a compost heap, and I put them in on their own, but I've now started to fill that compost heap. And I read an article in Kitchen Garden magazine by sheer coincidence. It's the edition for October, which is out in August, which is odd. And it said that although you can't save potato tubers that have had blight, because the blight will live within the tuber and come back next year, with tomato plants the blight dies with the plant. So if you compost it, the blight dies because it can't survive without living material to live on. So they've all gone in a compost heap. We saved the tomatoes. Interestingly, I did video it, but again, you know, I've lost the clip. Moneymaker, I grew 3 tomato plants in the outside beds here. Roma, which is a plant that was given to me very kindly by Bridget, which is a very nice plum tomato. Roma, Gardener's Delight, which is the classic, and then Moneymaker. And Moneymaker, that didn't have anywhere near as much blight, and it wasn't affecting the tomatoes. The reason I dug them up is the wind had smashed the plants to the ground and the slugs were eating the tomatoes because they were touching the ground. So I thought, right, cut my loss. We've had a lot of tomatoes. I've learned my lessons. Next year I'm only growing blight resistant tomatoes outdoors. I believe Crimson Crush is one, and Moneymaker I will do again. And I've got to stake them better. You know, throughout the summer, even with the summer weather, we inevitably get really ferocious winds on this site, because, you know, I'm the first plot that the wind hits in the westerlies that we get. So I've got to, you know, I've just got to prepare better, and I've learned from my mistake, which is critical. You know, there's no problem with making mistakes, but you must learn from them. That's the key. Funnily enough, little story there, when I was in the army and we went on manoeuvres or exercise as we called it, or if it was operations, whenever that was finished, we would get together in the headquarters. The commanding officer would get his main players together and they would produce a document called Lessons Learned, and that was distributed throughout the regiment so that any mistakes or shortcomings within the unit were ironed out before the next one, because as we all know, it's important to learn your lessons. Well, while I was still in the forces, they changed that document from Lessons Learned to Lessons Identified, because somebody somewhere cleverer than me spotted, although actually it was obvious to most, we never did learn the lessons, and we continued to make the same mistakes, just like lawmakers do, just like the police do, just like Parliament. You never really learn lessons, especially lessons from history. So instead of calling it Lessons Learned, they call it Lessons Identified. How politically correct. Anyway, it's just a little aside. So that was last week. If you're watching this, like I say, then I've been successful in uploading my video and we're back on normal jogging. So what am I doing today? Well, the main job today, I've actually started it through the week. I got some more cardboard from the garden centre, and I've made a start tidying up this ragged, overgrown edge of my plot which borders the golf driving range. It's only aesthetics. It doesn't really affect the beds at all. I just like everything to be neat and tidy, and I hate scruffiness. I think it reflects, it's another little sort of lesson I've learned. You can tell a lot about people by their gardens. When I go and I give a quote, which I don't do much now because I've got my regular customers, people's gardens, before you walk in the house, you look at somebody's garden, you know what you're going to find in the house. If you're given a lift by somebody, if you get in their car and their car's full of litter and muck and debris, you know that that's going to follow through every aspect of their life. And I'm not judging anybody before anyone gets upset with me. But that's what I find, that if you keep a clean, tidy car, more often than not, so is your house and your garden is well kept. And if any of those three are untidy, then it follows through the lot and through people's lives. It's just an observation. Like I say, not judging. If the cap fits. So yes, this week I'm carrying on with that. I'm hoping I've got enough time to do the second strawberry bed. I hope the runners are all done. And Betty, if you're watching, there's a small tray there. There's only 6 plants in there, but they're yours. There's a little marker in there that's got your name on it. And I'll put them up here next to my toilet. So if I'm not here, you can collect them. And while I'm on the subject of Betty, I'm now using your tea bags, Betty. I thought I'd better use them. They're not going to last indefinitely, are they? So thank you very much. And I think there's about 10 tea bags in there, so I've got 10 tea bags before I need to get some more tea bags. So yeah, carry on with the border of the edge, and then dig out this other strawberry bed. Also, Cheryl and I went out yesterday for a walk and a drive, and we popped in a garden centre. And because it's in Wales, you don't have to wear these face masks. It's fantastic in Wales. It's the first time I've been pleased to live in Wales, other than the magnificent countryside. They don't wear masks in shops, so I can go and do a bit of shopping. We went out yesterday and I bought myself a pair of trainers. I want to try and start getting a little bit fitter by running in the evenings. I haven't run since I left the army, but anyway, that's a side issue. So I've bought some garlic, and I'm going to get the garlic in the ground today as well, I hope, in one of these beds that I've raised up so that it won't sit waterlogged over the winter. So that's today. I got here, well, yeah, about 5 o'clock, 5:05 I think, pitch black. And I've had the fire on. The fire's still on in the shed. Put the kettle on the stove, and it was blimmin' lovely. I do love getting up here in the cold and putting the fire on. So welcome along. Thank you if you're a subscriber, and if you're not, please consider doing so. Hit the thumbs up button if you wouldn't mind. Let's get some work done. Well, a picture paints 1,000 words, as they say. So you can see, I hope, what I'm doing with that extra supply of cardboard. The grass has been pushed back, and I've got a bit of work to do down there. I've let that area there get scruffy. In fact, there's some apples on that tree that need picking. I don't want to waste them. So this is what I've been up to, and I've only gone as far as that bench there, but you can see beyond that in the winter when I dug that trench, all the grass was cut back, and it was all very neat and I was very happy with it. But of course through the summer you can see the grass grows about 2 feet high, and it grows across and it completely blocks off the path. So I've decided, and I know this cardboard looks awful, and that's not how it's going to remain. What I think I'm going to do along the edge of this fence, because I can't put anything on the fence, it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to Liam and the golf driving range. But what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to get some pallets from the garden centre. I have a limitless supply, thanks to the owner, who I work for occasionally. And I'm going to create some sort of fencing up the edge there and do away with the cardboard. So that's the plan. But so far, and it's exposed my Hanley canal, and I'm using small pieces of bamboo as stakes to hold the cardboard in place, so that come the winter and the inevitable heavy rains, that canal will flow freely. That's the plan. So yeah, more cardboard down, and this is as far as I've got. This is where I shall start today. So with my shears I cut back the grass, establish the canal edges, dig it out a little bit because inevitably it fills up, and then carry on up. That's a job for today. Well, this is my effort at growing an Atlantic giant pumpkin, and I have to confess it's pretty miserable. The plant has all but given up. and so with this plant go my aspirations of winning the handsome sum of £8. However, let's go and look at what I think may just be the winner. Well, on the opposite side of the site is Bridget's 3 plots, and it doesn't take an expert to work out what I'm talking about. Look, the mummy and daddy of the Atlantic giant world, and I've got in fact I wouldn't even call mine a baby, it might even just be a fetus, but look at these absolute beauties. As always with Bridget's plot, I'm going to be very careful where I stand. Anyway, that is how to grow an Atlantic giant pumpkin. In fact, clearly she's managed to lift that, because since I last looked, she's put these mats underneath them, obviously to stop them rotting. They are absolute beauties. Wow. Well done, Bridget. Well, it's 6:30, and while the wind is very light, I thought we'd have a wander around my plot. So all summer long, these butternut squash have looked really bedraggled, weak. However, in the last month, true to form, they've picked up, and you know, I've got some handsome looking butternuts there. I really have had a really poor year for pumpkins. I simply just did not prepare the ground well enough, I don't think. I really don't know. I've mentioned it many times. But you can see, and I need 10 pumpkins to go to the shop. And I've counted and I've got the 10, albeit some of them are only just bigger than tennis balls. But they are turning the required orange colour, so you know, I fulfilled the contract. That's the main thing. We don't eat pumpkins ourselves, so I'm not too worried. So coming to the plot, really poor year for runner beans. These runner beans went immediately hard, stringy. Yeah, don't understand why, but talking to people around the plot, everybody is saying the same. Oh, let's go through the arch. So it's that time of year when, as I finish crops, the beds are being emptied, and you know, it's a natural cycle of life on a normal allotment. These runner beans were given to me by one of the other plot holders, and I don't know what make they are, but they are beautiful to look at. and I think I may have a bit of success with these. These are growing much more slowly, and so we may get a good crop off them. They may save the day. That's a second sowing of cauliflowers, which were absolutely devastated by the cabbage white butterfly. So, and then a piece of Enviromesh became available. I netted it and they've taken off. So I'm afraid on this site, as ugly as the mesh is, it's the only way to grow brassicas for me. That Harris fencing panel fits nicely in that bed, and that's what I'm growing my alderman peas up next year. The sweet corn was virtually all eaten by mice or birds or rats, not sure what. Start taking my leeks today. Fantastic, that looks really handsome. The Market More cucumbers keep on growing, and more butternuts and a couple of pumpkins. So I'm going to leave the butternuts until the vegetation collapses, but they're looking like a good crop. That's all my Brussels sprouts, and they look ready to go now. Over there in that bed there is a second sowing of beetroot, the Dichogia beetroot with the red and white inners. And again, there's some there that are slightly bigger than golf balls, so we can start taking those. Cheryl will be pleased to have to cook more beetroot. We've had our first couple of tubs of Sarpomera main crop potatoes. In fact, I think we're having mash and leeks for tea tonight. So with a nice thick gravy, which I love. So they've been a success so far. They're not very big, but they're big enough. And of course, if you're making mash out of them, it doesn't matter. Those are the raspberries, summer fruiting, that Bridget gave me from her garden, and they look to be doing well. There's all my, in those trays are my new strawberry plants grown from runners. And one of those the green tray on the end is now Betty's. So what else? Well, the cabbages, red and green, look superb, and they are ready for harvesting. Maybe I should take a couple to the farm shop. A second batch of, or in fact a third batch of leeks. My new strawberry bed, and then assorted different stuff over there. So that's how we're looking in the first week of September. What is this life, if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. No time to gaze beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep and cows. What is this life, if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. Stunning. With the chorus of the birds in the background. Nature at its very best. What's even better is the kettle's just boiling. Daybreak. Well, I'm busy. I'm working my way down the edge with the cardboard and the chip-ins. But I thought I'd do something a little bit different this week. And, you know, it may work, it may not, but it's something I find fascinating. I've heard a few people say, either on the telly or in family and friends, they wish they'd spoke to their fathers, mothers, grandparents particularly, more when they were alive, because once they've gone, their life and their history goes with them. Well, my parents have written down their memories, and they are from an absolutely fascinating time in history, you know, around and after the Second World War. And, you you know, with the way things are today, we've become an ever more risk-averse world. You know, if I hear that phrase, when it's safe to do so, one more time, I think I'll scream. If I had any hair, I'd pull it out. And it takes me back, because everything, you know, my mum and dad have written down, they've told me over the years, and it's from a different time. It's almost a different species. Life was different, life was tougher. And, you know, I see somebody on the television today, some small, you know, teenager saying, oh, I suffer with anxiety. And I'm not trying to belittle it. I'm absolutely convinced that, you know, their anxiety is genuine. It's not a comment on mental health. I just think we have no concept. The young today have very little concept of what real hardship and real danger is. And I think a few paragraphs from my dad's memoirs or journal, called Just a Gillingham Lad, might give a bit of perspective. I think, you know, I've said it before about this current situation. We have no perspective anymore. It's frightening. And I'm not going to make any more comment because, you know, my feelings on the whole situation. I think it's ridiculous. But anyway, I'm just going to read a few excerpts. Bear with it, listen to it, and I'd love to hear what you think. But this is my dad's very humble young life. Just a few excerpts. I was told I was born a month premature. He was born in October 1937, just to give a bit of perspective on the time, in Gillingham, in Kent. And for those of you who are abroad or you don't know your history and your geography, Kent took a bashing because Kent was on the route between the German air bases in France and London. So when the Battle of Britain and the bombing was going on, the Blitz, you know, Kent took a hell of a smashing, because if the German pilots were scared, they dumped, well, of course they were scared, but if they were scared to the point where they released their load too soon, or they didn't drop it over London and they dropped it on the way back, or anything went wrong and their navigation was out, everything dropped on Kent. And of course my mum and dad, they both were born in and around Chatham, and Chatham had a thriving dockyard at the time, so it would have been a target in its own right. Anyway, I was told I was born a month premature, weighing only 5.5 pounds, and up until I was 7 was frequently poorly, and Mum worried about my poor appetite. I know little of this except for 2 instances. I was almost 4 and the Battle of Britain was in full swing. I was diagnosed with scarlet fever, a serious complaint in those days, and responsible for many child deaths. I was admitted to St Bartholomew's Hospital, Chatham, in an isolation room. I can remember my mum's face at the glass of the door and her reassuring wave, for only essential staff came in, gowned up and wearing face masks. As I began to recover, I remember one afternoon lying flat on my back, looking backwards out of the window and watching a dogfight between British and German planes. The window was open and I could hear the roar of their engines as they circled, rose and dived at each other. The fight seemed to go on for ages. I can't remember any indication of someone scoring a hit before they moved out of my vision. The second instance was in July 1943. I woke up in the night to use the PO, which is short for chamber pot, and fell flat on my face. That's not the last time he fell flat on his face, I can tell you. My right leg was bent double and stuck. I had an abscess behind the knee, so off to St Bart's for an operation. I often wondered how Mum and Dad coped financially, as this was before the welfare state of 1948. I have since found out that hospital treatment, even before then, was free, state provided. To see a doctor or dentist, however, you had to pay them direct, for in those days they were self-employed. I believe a consultation for an adult prior to 1948 was in the order of 7 shillings and 6pence, which is about 37 pence. We had a large cardboard savings box on the mantelpiece with pictures of nurses and the sick decorating it. Mum and Dad would put pennies in whenever they could afford to. Whilst Dad was away in the war, I remember Mum tipping the money out of the box and counting it. I guess she was actually having to take some pennies back, as she did not really have enough to live on. And I'll just read one more clip, and then, and I'll do a little bit, maybe every other week or something. So a little bit more about his memories of the war. Other early memories are of wartime. Mum had poor hearing, so when the bombing started, the youngest daughter of our good neighbours, the Bryants, slept round our house so she could wake Mum up if the siren sounded. We then went next door to be together till the all clear. It wasn't long before it was me that did the waking up, as my Auntie Cynthia slept so soundly. When the siren went off, I woke Mum and we went downstairs. I grabbed my bag of a few toys. Mum grabbed her bag of purse, rent book, ration books, etc. She banged on the dividing wall with a hairbrush and we made the dash. The hairbrush made sure the Bryants' had the door open ready. It was lovely in the Bryants' living room. They always had a good fire day and night, so it was cosy. I sat under the table surrounded by half a dozen pairs of legs. Both families had Anderson bomb shelters down the garden, but in a matter of weeks they were flooded. We had a narrow escape one night in our mad dash. Whether I didn't wake straight away, I don't know, but as Mum opened the front door, the bombing was already happening and I could hear noises. I held Mum back for a minute, then when it seemed quiet, we ran. Next day the street was littered with shrapnel, the small fragments of a bomb casing caused by a bomb going off in mid-air, a lethal situation. Although I mentioned earlier that I was supposed to have a poor appetite, that's not how I remember it, for during the war, the highlight of my life was when we received a food parcel from Australia. In fact, I clearly remember at least 2 parcels and guess it would have been sometime around 1942, when rationing was at its tightest because of the German U-boat successes. I never knew that people in Australia who were fairly untouched, I mean there was a bit of Japanese action around Australia, but not a lot, that they were sending parcels to the UK. That's the sort of, the little details of which, that's how you get this kind of information. And he goes on to list what was in the parcel, and it was full of, very sweet goodies, slab cake, fruit cake. And the interesting thing about the shrapnel is, and it's it's history local to my family, is whether it was my dad or my granddad when he came back, they dug a bit of shrapnel out the path, and it's about that long, and we still have it. My dad still has it. In fact, my youngest son Daniel is so fascinated by history that he's asked his granddad when he dies, can he have the shrapnel? Anyway, and of course, my dad, when he was a young boy, lying in bed watching the dogfights over the River Medway between the British and the German fighters, fighting to the death. Fascinating. Anyway, I'll read a few more bits. There are some really fascinating clips in this about his young life and how it compares in his lifetime to the young of today. Anyway, I hope you found that mildly interesting, and I shall read some more at another time. It's 8:30. The day is well and truly alive, and I've gone as far as I've got cardboard for, so I'm just short of halfway, I guess. Maybe I am halfway, and very happy with that. That's tidied it up no end. I can walk up and down this path now without brushing against nettles and blackberries and all sorts, so very happy with that. Just, take my time, get a bit more cardboard in the week and carry it on. So now I've got to switch fire to that strawberry bed. Well, a quick progress report. Firstly, I am sweating buckets and finding it physically demanding. However, nothing wrong with that. But that's the 1/3 of the bed with a good, I don't know, 8 to 10 inches of well rotted manure and compost underneath it. And then I've lifted the soil back onto it, raked it. I've got a bit more raking to do once it's dried a bit. But that's, you know, you can see the soil is up now, level with the top of the wood. Down here, got to go, and it's a good 3-4 inches below the level of the wood. So still some way to go. But I'm going to go and sit down and take a breather and just cool down a bit. Well, that took some effort, but the job's done. Hopefully that will lead to a bumper harvest next year. As you probably are aware, I've got some tubs of carrots around the corner. 3 of the tubs have got sweet candle in them, and I've emptied the first tub. And every time I took the carrots out of the first tub, they were all forked. And I thought, oh, that's a shame. And as I've had comments and you know, deduced myself, it's got to be something to do with the soil. You know, the classic storyline is if your soil is too rich, the carrots will fork. And I'm sure that's what's going on in the first tub. The second tub, which I'm now emptying and using, is a different story. I have never grown such beautiful carrots, stunning, and I've yet to have one of them come out of there forked. So it's got to be some, you know, I mean, I thought I mixed them all the same, but clearly there's a difference. They're the same seeds out of the same packet. First tub all forked, second tub none of them forked. So I think the first tub, what I shall do over the winter, I shall get some more horticultural sand, and I'll make the first tub a little sandier, a little less nutrient rich soil, and hopefully that will remedy for the following year. But I am thrilled to bits with those stunning carrots. Yeah, very happy. Well, that was a tough day. I don't know any way around physical work. I know this, you know, everyone extols no dig, and I totally get no dig. And I'd love to be no dig. And wherever possible, that is what I am. But I've had a sustained campaign now since last winter to raise everything. And I know if you're a subscriber and you watch all these videos, you're acutely aware of it, and I know I'm labouring the point, but I have got to get both the paths and the vegetable beds up 4, 5, 6 inches out of the rain that is going to come. And I'm fairly happy that that's what I've done. There may be 1 or 2 beds now that I haven't quite done that to, but those 2 strawberry beds were a job outstanding. So now, in those 2 strawberry beds, I don't have a plant over 1 year old. I think that's right. No, maybe 1 row in this top one that's 2 years old, but there's a label on it, so you know, if I read the label I'll know. So I have completely fresh strawberries now, and each year I have 6 rows. So each year, maybe not next year because they're such new plants, but in 2 or 3 years' time I will change 1 row in each bed. And that will rotate the plants and keep them fresh and keep productivity high. That's the plan. So yeah, I did the tomatoes last week, got rid of them, and we've had, in fact I had the last of the tomato sauce that we haven't frozen for my lunch today with some pasta. That's the new strawberry beds. The 2 jobs outstanding now, just, you know, make sure everything is tickety-boo are the pond and this edge. And strange noise. My neighbour's just turned up. Yeah. So yeah, those jobs are outstanding. And what I've decided to do with the fence line here between me and the golf range is to have whole pallets as a fence, and that will serve to keep the vegetation back, but more importantly it will create a lovely windbreak. So that's it for this week. I'm hoping I'll be able to upload this, and if I can't, you're not watching it. If you're watching it, I've succeeded. So I shall be back next week. Look after yourselves, take care, bye for now.